There we go. All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the first in the superheroes quizzes that will be taking place as part of our program for helping out, hopefully, and providing some self-development and other sorts of social interactions for lone and single parents. So just in case you've maybe been passed on this link, you don't know why you're here, these sessions have been paid for by the National Lottery. We have been running a series of different workshops around a whole range of different issues that really tackle the key challenges that single parents might face, interspersed throughout these highly informative and educational webinars, which are typically taking place on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday each week. We've also got the occasional just for fun one, such as this one is today. So whilst it is fun, I'm hoping it might also be insightful and educational, because I have niched my quiz into the area of autism. And I have to say a thank you to all of you who are going to be joining in this quiz either today or watching on the replay later on, because I've learned some stuff as a result of compiling these quiz questions. I've also got a reference of a couple of websites that you might want to check out on the flip side of this, just to back up the facts that I'm sharing this evening. I did not obviously complete these questions myself. I used some various different references with good information on them. So hopefully all of my answers are accurate for that reason. So some of you will be joining us, I'm sure, for other webinars that we've got coming up in the not too distant future. So I can't think, actually, let me do a little bit of an announcement now as to what webinars are coming up soon. These are running until I think the 31st of March. So we've got quite a few more that are going to be taking place before HTTPS, let me put in the correct code. So the website to go to is this one. It's u.nu/LPSS. And we today are on the autism quiz just here. So tomorrow you will be joined by the lovely Katrina. She is going to be doing handling confrontations and conflicts. And then, oh, it's back to me again. So for an open Q&A session, so any kinds of parenting challenges that are niggling at you, or maybe there are some behavioural issues that you're dealing with, some emotional challenges that are going on with your children, feel free to attend that session with me, which is on the 17th. So what day is that? Wednesday. I will be hosting that one. Then we've got Bella, who's done quite a bit for us already. So she's also going to be then doing the avoiding stress session. And as you can see, there's quite a few more. So we've got quite a few of these open Q&A sessions coming up, where if there are particular challenges that you are experiencing with your child or young person, you can just pick our brains. And it's quite possibly the most cost-effective way for you to engage with one of our practitioners. We've got a few more of these quizzes coming along. So the next one is with Ian and Kat, which is the ADHD one. Back to me for an anger one. Ian and Kat for the sleep quiz, that'll be fun. And then we've got Mary and Julie doing an open Q&A, followed by me again for the self-harm quiz. That one sounds like fun as well, doesn't it? All right, so listen, we will try and keep this one today as light as possible, given that you know, this is quite a challenging concern, and it's something that more and more parents are finding themselves coming up against a diagnosis whereby they, discover that their child is what we would call on the spectrum. So with autism, we know that it has a very wide degree of severity, in which some people can be incredibly high functioning and others suffering with more cognitive impairments as a result of a diagnosis of ASD. So we will be going into more detail about that throughout our quiz tonight. Hopefully there will be some useful stuff in there as well as just getting some good facts around what it is that we're looking at when we are working with autism. So you will need a pen and a piece of paper so that you can keep a track of your scores, and there are 25 questions in total this evening. Some are multiple choice, some are true or false, and I think that's it. I think you've made, well, yeah, they're mainly true or false or multiple choice, so it should be fairly straightforward. It's always worth having a go, as my teachers used to say whenever we had a multiple choice exam, because you've got, you know, like a 1 in 4 chance of getting the answer right, so it's always worth a shot. Okay, so without further ado, also just to say, I will do all of the questions and then I'll do all of the answers at the end. So I'm not going to do a question and then the answer. So we're doing it proper quiz format here, which means that if for some reason you can't hang around until the very end, we will upload this to YouTube, and probably within the next day or two, you'll be able to hop on there and you'll be able to catch up with the answers that way. All right, so let us begin. Question number 1. This is a multiple choice question. There are 4 possible answers, A, B, C, or D, if you would like to mark those down on your pages now. Question number 1, how many children are affected by autism? So is the answer A, 1 in 68, B, 1 in 6 children have autism, C, 1 in 18, or D, 1 in every 100 children are affected by autism? Okay, so I'll read the question for you again. How many children are affected by autism? A, 1 in 68, B, 1 in 6, C, 1 in 18, or D, 1 in 100? Okay, are we ready for question number 2? I really wish I had alcohol here today, but I've got work tomorrow and I'm of an age where just 1 glass of wine, it just means a bad night's sleep. It's not worth it. So I'm on the juice. I'm on the juice instead. All right, so question number 2. Question number 2 is, which is more common? All right, so you've got A, B, C, or D options again. And just to say, for question 1 and question number 2, there is only one possible answer. Obviously, for question number 1, there's only one possible. There's also only one possible answer here. There may be some questions that come up where there may be more than one possible answer, but I will tell you when we get to those ones. All right, so question number 2, which is more common? A, childhood cancer, B, diabetes, C, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or D, autistic spectrum disorder? Okay, so which is more common? Childhood cancer, diabetes, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or ASD, being autism spectrum disorder? Okay, question number 3 is also a multiple choice. We have an A, B, C, or D option. So I want to know, the name autism comes from where? Is it Greek, meaning separate? Do you think the word autism is Greek, meaning self? Do you think that it is Greek, meaning disconnect? Or D, Latin, meaning alone? All right, so where does the name autism come from? A, Greek, and it's meaning separate. B, Greek, meaning self. C, Greek, meaning disconnect. Or is it D, Latin, meaning alone? Okay, where does the name autism come from? Okay, question number 4. This is a true or false, by the way. Okay, question number 4 is a true or false. Some nationalities are not affected by autism. Is that true or false? So in some nationalities, no one is affected by autism. True or false? Okay, so question number 5. Now, this may or may not be something that you're aware of. At some point, and I shan't tell you when because that's formulating part of your question, at some point in the past, the diagnosis name changed from autism to ASD, so autistic spectrum disorder. So if you hear me saying autism and ASD interchangeably, that's why. All right, so I would like to know, in what decade did the diagnosis change to saying people with autism or people with ASD? When did that happen? When did that change happen? And that's really as opposed to saying autistic. Okay, so instead of saying they are autistic, the correct way to say it now is this is a person with autism. So I want to know, in what decade did that diagnosis officially change? All right, question number 6 is a multiple choice again, and we have an ABCD answer. And the question is, before what age does ASD generally appear? A, before 10 years. B, before 15 years of age. C, before 3 years of age. Or D, before 3 months of age. All right, so generally speaking, when is it most likely that we're going to be able to notice the symptoms and possibly start questioning whether a diagnosis is required? Is it A, before 10 years, B, before 15 years of age, C, before 3 years of age, or D, before 3 months of age? Okay, question 7. 7 is another true or false. Better outcomes and lives are achieved with early diagnosis in ASD. Is that true or false? So basically, can an early diagnosis help with outcomes, better outcomes and better lives for people with autism? Is that true or is it false? All right, question number 8. Also a true or false question. Early interventions will have positive effects on all children with autism. Is that true or is it false? Early interventions will have positive effects on all children with ASD. Is that true or is it false? We have another true or false for question number 9. True or false, there is currently no medical detection for ASD. Okay, is that true or false? There is currently no medical detection for ASD. Question number 10. So we have multiple choice here. This is one where you may want to select more than one answer. I'm not giving anything away, but I'm just saying you might want to. It's an option. So what can autism cause challenges with? So we have A, spoken language, B, social communication, C, respiratory issues, and D, skin conditions. Okay, what can autism cause challenges with? A, spoken language, B, social communication, C, respiratory issues, and D, skin conditions. All right, that is your first 10 questions. We have 15 more to go. If you do happen to have a beverage close by, I would recommend now as a time to have a little drink, which is what I'm going to do. See, in my mind, you're all sat there with a glass of wine and some Scooby snacks, because I think that's the way to go with a quiz, surely. All right, let us plow on. So question number 11. This is a true or false question. True or false? Autism is degenerative. Okay, true or false? Autism is degenerative. So meaning that the symptoms get worse over time. Question number 12. Those with autism can improve over time. Is that true or is it false that people with autism can improve over time? The opposite of question 11. All right, question number 13 has 4 possible answers. So it's an A, B, C, or D. There is one answer only. What percentage of ASD children will learn to speak fluently? Okay, what percentage of ASD children will learn to speak fluently? A, nearly 50%, B, nearly 20%, C, nearly 70%, or D, nearly 80%. Okay, so what percentage of autistic spectrum disorder children will learn to speak fluently? A, nearly 50%, B, nearly 20%, C, nearly 70%, and D, nearly 80%. I see Mary's disappeared and I'm wondering if she took my suggestion to go and get herself a glass of wine and some nibbles. Might be what's happening here. All right, so question number 14, which is true? So this is an A or a B. So which is true? A, ASD children often care but lack empathy and social connection. Or answer B, autistic spectrum disorder children do not care because they do not have the neural connections to be able to do so. Okay, so which is true? A, ASD children often care but lack empathy and social connection. Or B, ASD children do not care because they do not have the neural connections to be able to do so. Okay, question number 15. This is a multiple choice. We have 4 possible answers. What is the likelihood of an identical twin developing ASD? Is it A, 97 to 100% chance? Okay, remember this is an identical twin. B, 15 to 18%. C, 60 to 96%. Or D, 40 to 50%. All right, this question fascinates me. I think that the answer fascinates me just as much as the question does, in all honesty. So what is the likelihood of an identical twin? So remember, with an identical twin, they are genetically identical. They are the same person duplicated. It is a clone. Okay, so what is the likelihood of an identical twin developing ASD? A, 97 to 100% likelihood. B, that's Siri trying to talk to me, 15 to 18%. C, 60 to 96%. Or D, 40 to 50%. All right. Question number 16. Some conditions linked to ASD could include, you may want to pick more than one answer here. We have 4 possible answers. I mean, don't let me influence you. Maybe you just want to pick one. It's up to you. It's your quiz. All right, so A, allergies. B, digestive disorders. C, epilepsy. D, sensory dysfunctions. All right, so what conditions are linked to autistic spectrum disorder? A, allergies. B, digestive disorders. C, epilepsy. And D, sensory dysfunctions. Which of those do you think are linked? Okay, question number 17. How many people with ASD suffer with seizures? Okay, so how many people with ASD suffer with seizures? 4 options. A, 1/4. B, 1/5. C, half. Or D, 1/3. Okay, so how many people with autistic spectrum disorder suffer with seizures? 1/4, 1/5, half, or 1/3? Okay. So question number 18. Some people with ASD can, and we have got 3 possible answers here, of which there may be more than one answer. So some people with ASD can A, interact well, B, have good eye contact, C, have good communication skills. Some people with ASD can A, interact well, B, have good eye contact, or C, have good communication skills. Question number 19. Children with ASD are, we have 3 possible answers here. A, of average intelligence. B, have cognitive difficulties. Or C, have a very high IQ. All right, so children with ASD are of average intelligence. B, have cognitive difficulties. Or C, have a very high IQ. Maybe you would want to pick more than one answer for that one. Okay. All right, I have some famous people here who are reported to be on the autistic spectrum disorder. The question is, which of these people are on the spectrum? All right, so I'm going to give you 4 different names. There may be just one, there may be more than one. It's up to you to decide. Okay, so who is reported to be on the autistic spectrum disorder? A, Donald Trump. B, Albert Einstein. C, Andy Warhol. Or D, Bill Gates. Okay, so who is reported to be? So it's not actually known for sure. They may well have a diagnosis but haven't been public about it, but they're reported to be on the autistic spectrum disorder. So who do you think? Donald Trump, Albert Einstein, Andy Warhol, I think he's an artist, right? Or D, Bill Gates. Well, Bill Gates has been busy causing coronavirus, according to my Facebook feed, so I don't know. I don't know about that chap. Okay, so question number 21. This is a true or false question. So true or false? Symptoms of ASD are different in females, so they are less likely to be diagnosed early. Okay, what do you think, true or false? Maybe half the sentence is true, half the sentence is false, in which case you'd need to go for a false. All right, so true or false, symptoms of ASD are different in females, so they are less likely to be diagnosed early. All right, question number 22. Females with autism are an understudied group. Do you think that is true or false? So if you think about, there's been lots and lots of studies into autism. Maybe you have seen some of those studies. If you have, what do you remember about the general population that was included within those statistics? Were they mainly male or were they mainly female? So females with autism are an understudied group, true or false? Okay, we are on to question number 23. We're on the home straight already. Many services for autistic spectrum disorder children end suddenly after school age. Do you think that that is true or false? Okay, many services for ASD children end suddenly after school age. Question 24. This one is a multiple choice. We have 3 possible answers here. And the question is, what percentage of young people with ASD, so between the ages of 19 and 23, have not had a job? All right, so what percentage of young people with ASD between the ages of 19 and 23 have not had a job? So we have A, 20% have not had a job, B, 70% have not had a job, and C, 35% of young people between 19 and 23 years have not had a job. Okay, so that was your question at 24. What percentage of young people aged 19 to 23 years have not had a job? A, 20%, B, 70%, or C, 35%. And your final question, question 25. This is a true or false. Asperger's used to be used as a description of high-functioning autism, but the term is no longer used. Okay, so true or false? Asperger's used to be used as a description of high-functioning autism, but the term is no longer used. All right, I will run through all of those questions one more time, just in case you missed any of them, or you may like to revise your answer if you've decided something else instead. So, question number 1 was, how many children are affected by autism? We have 1 in 68, B, 1 in 6, C, 1 in 18, or D, 1 in 10. Question 2 is, which is more common? A, childhood cancer, B, diabetes, C, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or D, ASD. Question number 3 was, the name autism comes from A, it is Greek meaning separate, B, it is Greek meaning self, C, it is Greek meaning disconnect, or D, it is Latin meaning alone. Question number 4, some nationalities are not affected by autism, true or false? Question number 5 was, in which decade did the diagnosis change to being referred to as people with autism or people with ASD, as opposed to saying they are autistic? Question number 6. Before what age does ASD generally appear? Is it before 10 years, before 15 years, C, before 3 years, or D, before 3 months? Question number 7 is a true or false. Better outcomes and lives are achieved with early diagnosis, true or false? B, true or false, early interventions will have positive effects on all children. So is that true or false? Number 9, true or false, there is currently no medical detection for ASD. Question number 10, what can autism cause challenges with? A, spoken language, B, social communication, C, respiratory issues, and D, skin conditions. Question number 11 was true or false, autism is degenerative. Question 12, true or false, those with autism can improve over time. Question number 13 is, what percentage of children with ASD will learn to speak fluently? So we had A, nearly 50%, B, nearly 20%, C, nearly 70%, or D, nearly 80%. 14 was a true or false, which is true. ASD children often care but lack empathy and social connection, or ASD children do not care because they do not have the neural connections to be able to do so. Question 15, what is the likelihood of an identical twin developing ASD? So A was 97 to 100%, B was 15 to 18%, C was 60 to 96%, and D was 40 to 50%. Question 16 was conditions linked to ASD include A, allergies, B, digestive disorders, C, epilepsy, and D, sensory dysfunction. Number 17 was how many people with ASD suffer with seizures? So we had A, 1/4, B, 1/5, C, half, or D, 1/3. Question 18 was 3 possible answers. Some people with ASD can interact well, have good eye contact, and have good communication skills, or C. Question 19, children with ASD are A, of average intelligence, B, have cognitive difficulties, or C, have a very high IQ. Question 20 was your celebrity round. Who is reported to be ASD? A, Donald Trump, B, Albert Einstein, C, Andy Warhol, or D, Bill Gates. 21 was a true or false. Symptoms of ASD are different in females, so they are less likely to be diagnosed early. Question number 22 was females with autism are an understudied group, true or false? 23 is another true or false. Many services for ASD children suddenly end after school age, true or false? 24, what percentage of young people between the ages of 19 and 23 years have not had a job, who are also ASD? A, 20%, B, 70%, or C, 35%? And the final question, 25, for our rundown is true or false. Asperger's used to be used as a description of high functioning autism, but it is now not used. Whew. All right, and have a sip of my drink, and then I will give you the answers. Have a guess. Before I dish out the answers, I'd like some predictions. How well do you think you've done? Do you think you've got more than 10, more than 15, more than 20? What do you think? You can use your chat box. So there is a chat box included on your control panel. So you can type your numbers in there. Let me know what do you expect your score to be? More than 10, more than 15? I don't think anyone would have got less than 10, would they? You're a bunch of smart cookies. Where's my chat box? So it'd be interesting to see what you predict your answers are. And then at the end, you're going to tell me what you did actually score. What have we got coming in? 10-ish. I think I've done okay, maybe 20. Oh, some big differences coming through there. All right, it's time to mark your work. No cheating, all right? Okay, I have to confess, on about 2 questions, I forgot to mark down which one was the right answer, but it's okay because I think I remember. Just saying. All right, so question number 1. See, this is why I shouldn't drink ever, because I'm like this sober. Okay, question number 1. How many children are affected by autism? Our options were A, 1 in 68, B, 1 in 6, C, 1 in 18, or D, 1 in 100. The correct answer is A, 1 in 68 children are affected by autism. Okay, question number 2 was another multiple choice. Which is more common? A, childhood cancer, B, diabetes, C, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or D, ASD? I would think you probably all correctly guessed D, ASD, but what you might not know is it is more common than all of the others put together. So there's a fact, right? So autistic spectrum disorder is more common than the combined value of childhood cancer, diabetes, and acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. All right, question number 3. The name autism, I will be impressed if any of you got this one correct. I don't think I would have guessed this. The name autism comes from, so the options we had were A, it's Greek meaning separate, B, it means self, C, it means disconnect, or D, it means, it was Latin and it means alone. Well, the answer is Greek, and the answer is B, it means self. Okay, so the name autism means self. All right, question number 4. This was a true or false. Some nationalities are not affected by autism is false. So autism shows up in all races, all cultures, all creeds, all countries. It is something that spans the globe. All right, so question number 5 was, in what decade did the diagnosis change from being autistic to a person with autism? The answer is in the 1990s. I don't know when specifically in the 1990s, but I can tell you it was in the decade of the 1990s. All right, so this is one where I didn't actually note down the correct answer, but I think I know it anyway. Before what age, so this was number 6, by the way, before what age does ASD generally appear? So we had A before age 10, C was before age 15, B was age before 15, C was before age 3, and D is before 3 months. The correct answer is C, before 3 years. I have heard of some parents saying that they knew when their baby was very, very new, but I think that's quite rare. So yeah, normally it's around the kind of 3-year mark. Language often has a lot to do with it. So how quickly their language develops. And of course, that's going to be happening between that sort of 18-month up to 3-year window. All right, so question number 7, true or false this one? Better outcomes and lives are achieved with early diagnosis. The answer to that one is, of course, true. And then question number 8, this was also a true or false. Early interventions will have positive effects on all children. The answer to that one is false. So early intervention will have positive effects on some children, but it isn't going to be effective for all of them. Okay, question number 9, true or false again. There is currently no medical detection for autistic spectrum disorder. The answer is true. There is currently not medical detection for ASD. So the detection process includes lots of different sorts of tests. Some of those will be like cognitive tests, reasoning, attention, what their language processing is like. So there's lots of different tests, but there isn't like a blood test that you can do to be able to diagnose ASD. Okay, question 10 was a multiple choice. What can autism cause challenges with? Again, this is one where I didn't actually write down the correct answer, but luckily I know it. So we have A, spoken language, B, social communication, C, respiratory issues. So I don't know why I struggle to say that word so much. Respiratory, that's it, isn't it? Respiratory issues. Or D, skin conditions. The correct answer is A and B. Okay, so spoken language and social communication are the areas where autism is likely to cause some challenges. All right, so then we have number 11 is a true or false. Autism is degenerative. The answer is false. Okay, it's not going to get any worse over time. Question 12. Those with autism can improve over time. The answer to that one is true. All right, so for some, the right interventions can really make a big difference. We can see some big breakthroughs in people with autism. All right, so question 13. What percentage of ASD children will learn to speak fluently? So there is only one answer out of 4 possible answers. We had A, nearly 50%, B, nearly 20%, C, nearly 70%, and D, nearly 80%. So remember, this is speak fluently. The correct answer is A, nearly 50%. Question 14, which is true? So we had 2 possible answers here. Which is true? ASD children often care but lack empathy and social connection. Or B, ASD children do not care because they do not have the neural connections to be able to do so. The correct answer is A. ASD children often care but lack empathy and social connection. All right. Question 15. What is the likelihood? Oh, this was the one I was fascinated by. All right. Oh, I'm so interested to know if you got this one right. What is the likelihood of an identical twin developing ASD? So in the context of one twin has ASD, what's the likelihood of their identical twin also developing ASD? I probably should have phrased it that way at the very beginning, shouldn't I? So I'll give you the answers again. So you have one twin who's got a diagnosis of ASD. What are the chances that their identical twin also gets a diagnosis? A, 97 to 100%. I know some of you are going to be changing your answers now, aren't you? B, 15 to 18%. C, 60 to 96%. Or D, 40 to 50%. What is the likelihood of an identical twin of someone with ASD developing ASD? The answer is C, 60 to 96% likelihood. So this one confuses me because it just does. I mean, I kind of know the answer. So the question that comes up is, why is it not 100%? It's not 100% because sometimes you can have a genetic predisposition for something, but then your life circumstances, so the external environmental stuff, might trigger that particular, be it a disease or an illness or a syndrome or any other kind of disorder into action. So if you don't have the same environmental triggers, then even though you perhaps carry the predisposition, you might not actually activate that disorder. So I think that's why it's not 100%. But then that takes me on a whole other journey in my mind around whether ASD is a nature or a nurture thing. And I guess then the answer is it's going to be a little bit of both, but probably slightly more on the genetic predisposition side of things, I would guess. Okay, anyway, question 16. So we've got 4 possible answers. What conditions are linked to autistic spectrum disorder? We had A, allergies, B, digestive problems, C, epilepsy, or D, sensory dysfunctions. The correct answer is all of them. Okay, these can all, not always, but they can all be linked to autistic spectrum disorder. One ASD person may have none, one may have some, one may have all. All right, so how many people, number 17, how many people with ASD also suffer with seizures? So these typically begin in teenage years, and it's believed that as the body's going through the hormonal changes, that's part of what might instigate and activate seizures. And that's not just in people with ASD, although they're more likely to suffer with seizures. That's just across the board. You know, someone could begin to have seizures as a result of onset in teenage years. So we have 4 possible answers. A was a quarter, B was 1/5, C was half, and D was a third. The correct answer is D, 1/3. Okay, number 18. So we've got 3 possible answers on this one. Some people with ASD can A, interact well, B, have good eye contact, C, have good communication skills. I think you've got this one. The answer is all of them. Okay, so they can have good eye contact, communicate well, interact well, be high functioning. You might never even know. In some cases, they might not ever even know either. All right, so number 19, children with ASD are A, of average intelligence, B, struggle with cognitive difficulties, or C, have a very high IQ. The correct answer to question 19 is it could be any of them. All right, so all of those can apply to someone with ASD, not obviously all simultaneously, but it's a very unique and individual condition. It's going to affect people in lots of different ways, and that's why we refer to it as a spectrum. Okay, now you're famous people. So who is reported to be ASD? Did you think A, Donald Trump, B, Albert Einstein, C, Andy Warhol, or D, Bill Gates? The correct answer is that Donald Trump is not reported to be ASD. Albert Einstein is. Andy Warhol is. And Bill Gates is. Okay, so there are 3 out of the 4 there who are reported to be ASD, basically everyone excluding Donald Trump. All right, 21. Was a true or false? Symptoms of ASD are different in females, so they are less likely to be diagnosed early. The answer to that one is true. Question 22. Females with autism are an understudied group. Well, because of question 21, the answer to question number 22 is also true. So it's easy for females to kind of work around their condition. It just doesn't present itself in the same way, and they're good at what you might refer to as masking their symptoms. So because of that, there appears to be a smaller demographic of females with autism, which actually might not be true. There might be just as many female people with autism as there is males with autism, just that the females are good at hiding it. And for that reason, because there seems to be a smaller cohort, there are less studies that have been done into female autism. All right, so question number 23. Many services for ASD children end suddenly after school age. True or false? That one is sadly true. So what happens, and certainly in this country, what happens is when you reach the age of like an adult, you are technically an adult, a lot of these services that you were part of only go up to say age 18, and then you're done. And there isn't necessarily any kind of transition between services for an 18-year-old young person to going into adult services, or the adult services that are there might not be anywhere near parallel to what they had access to when they were classed as a child. So quite often we see that a lot of the support that parents received even things like, you know, respite. Lots of respite facilities only go up to age 18. Obviously things like education, which in itself can be respite for parents if they have their young person going off to school or college each day. Suddenly that person is at home. They don't have school or college to go to anymore. So it puts a lot of pressure on families. Alrighty, so question 24. What percentage of young people, and this was aged 19 to 23 years of age, have not had a job? A, 20%, B, 70%, or C was 35%. The correct answer is C, 35%, which is a pretty meaty chunk. I think, you know, sort of flipping it, looking on the positive side, I guess, that does mean, though, that there's a majority that are able to get themselves into a workplace environment, which is very positive. All right, so question number 25 is a true or false. Asperger's used to be used as a description of high functioning autism, but that is now not used. Is that true or false? So this one, I'm going to take either answer because it somewhat depends upon where you live in the world. So often in the world of mental health and psychology, when it comes to making diagnosis, you will hear reference to something called the DSM, which is the Diagnosis and Statistical Manual, something along those lines. The DSM is actually the go-to for mental health diagnosis in America. So in America, it is true, they no longer use the term Asperger's. This is in part because, so there are two main reasons. Reason number one is because it was causing some confusion, and there isn't a sort of clear cutoff between being autistic and having Asperger's. Like there's no defining symptom, if you like, that would cause you to know whether someone fell into one area or the other. So it was complicated and confusing. Part of the reason as well is because Dr. Asperger, whilst he was not part of the Nazi Party, definitely had some connections to them, which made the use of his name not seem all that appropriate. So for that reason, in the DSM, you will no longer see the word Asperger's. However, in the ICD, which is the document for clinical diagnosis, so the manual that's used for clinical diagnosis throughout Europe and is used by the World Health Organization, they, in the most recent edition, which is edition 11, are still using Asperger's in there amongst the text. Whether or not it will still be there in the next edition when that's released remains to be seen. My suspicion is it might not be there anymore. So we're moving away from the term autism and instead leaning more heavily on the idea of a spectrum and that it is an autistic spectrum disorder. What's still quite unclear is how to, I guess, by way of conversation, define what end of that spectrum somebody might actually be showing up on. That's still quite challenging. And if you are a practitioner, perhaps interacting with a parent who has an ASD child, then an indicator can be to ask whether they are going to mainstream school. So if they're going to mainstream school, that's going to tell us that they're perhaps more towards the high functioning end. If they're not in mainstream school and they're perhaps either in a special unit or they go to a special needs school or a specialist school, then that might give us an idea that their ASD diagnosis is a bit more severe in their particular situation. So that's enough of my waffling. It's time for all of you to add up your scores whilst I take a sip of my drink. So technically your scores are out of 25, even though I fully respect and appreciate there was a couple of curveballs in there. If there was anywhere there were multiple answers that were correct, you maybe just got 2 of the 3 correct answers. I'll allow you to give yourself a half point for that one. Oh, I've got some scores coming in. Let's have a look. So, Paula Emmons, off of NLP for Kids practitioners, scored herself a whopping 21. Very good. Melissa Evans, off of the NLP for Kids office, scored herself a whopping 15. Need to learn more. And as for Trump, he's got something wrong. But it's not ASD as far as we know. I think that might be narcissistic personality disorder that man is struggling with. Anyways, I'll tell you a very quick funny story. I was on Facebook this morning and someone had posted a copy of an article written by a journalist about Donald Trump. And it was basically like a kissing his backside article that was like, Donald Trump once got a flat tire and a man pulled over and helped him, and Donald Trump said, how can I ever repay you? And the man said, send my wife a bunch of flowers. And he sent the man a bunch of flowers, but then there was a note in there that said, I've paid off your mortgage. It was like reams of stories like this. It was like, oh, really cringe. Anyway, I mean, great gestures, don't get me wrong, I'm not mocking him for that, but within this article there was a typo, and it made what should have been something praising Donald Trump, it made him look really, really bad. So it was along the lines of Donald Trump successfully sued Tampa in Florida, so the state of the county or the state of Tampa, for allowing Black people and Jews into his golf club. And I read it and I was like, I don't think it's supposed to say that, because everything else was really complimentary. And then I was a bit like, oh, is the author trying to just like sneak something in, and the whole article is actually meant to sabotage his personality. And it was obviously posted by someone who is a bit of a Trump fan. So I kind of went back and I said, like, lovely article. Such a shame, though, that typo has kind of thrown the whole thing off. And it's made a point at the end of saying, don't bother fact checking any of this. It's already been fact checked. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you might want to fact check that again, given that typo actually makes him look like a really bad person. I don't think that was the point of the article. So anyway, that all kicked off on Facebook, and they all got very defensive and angry with me, but it did make me chuckle. Anyways, all right, so that's enough Donald Trump stories. Did you learn anything here today around ASD? Was there some useful stuff in there? I hope so. It was a very interesting exercise to go and look through all of this stuff, and I did promise you that I would give you as well a website. So these facts on the most part came from Massachusetts General Hospital, and the website is massgeneral.org. They have a whole page where it is facts about autism. So if you would like to learn more, that was the website that I went to. I'm sure there is lots more out there for you to be able to learn, because it is a complex and fascinating subject area. But anyway, that is all from me today. I've managed to spend an hour just doing a quiz. I'm quite pleased with myself. Didn't know that I was going to pad it out for quite that long. Thank you for joining me this evening. If you have not already signed yourself up to some of the other upcoming superheroes workshops, then please do take a look. The website that you need to go to is https:// all of that jazz, /u.nu/LPSS. Okay, so that will take you to the spreadsheet where you've got all of the further workshops, Q&A sessions, quizzes, everything else that's coming up over the course of the next few weeks. So these are running for a while. Please go and enjoy those sessions. Thank you all so much for joining me this evening. Have yourselves a wonderful evening. Thank you, so interesting. Good to hear it. And I will speak to you all again very soon. Bye, everyone.